how does a young boy who grew up in Pittsburgh, PA, baby boomer, in an era where social networking was kickball on the basketball court, cell phones were 2 cups attached to a string, how does that happy little boy morph into a 44-year-old who is so sickened at his reflection, who feels so hopeless that he will never love himself or be loved, that he decides he would be doing his family a favor by ending his life by suicide? What is that process like? Let's go back in that same hot tub time machine to that little boy. Because you have to understand the story. Compassionate community is about at least acknowledging the story, even if we don't know all the details. I am the middle of 3 boys growing up. My older brother, Mark, who you may know, the Mavs and Shark Tank. I have a younger brother, Jeff. Mark, as you might imagine, the firstborn, was outgoing, entrepreneurial. He was selling this door to door, selling that door to door. I remember our local newspaper went on strike. He and his buddies, barely old enough to drive, drove out to Cleveland, which is just over 200 miles from Pittsburgh, bought the Cleveland Plain dealer, drove them back to Pittsburgh and sold them on a street corner of downtown Pittsburgh for exponentially what they paid for him. He knew how to see opportunity and fill it then, and he does now. My younger brother Jeff, good-looking kid, jock, nationally ranked wrestler, the prom, beer parties, girls, dates, all the things that I associated with love and acceptance. I was classic middle child syndrome. I was shy, I was withdrawn, I trended towards isolation, and I internalized anything negative said to me and about me and wore it like a skin-tight suit, a lot tighter than this suit. And I also had a very difficult relationship with my mother growing up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, but I want to make it clear to everyone watching me that I do not blame my mother for my mental health issues. Parents do not cause eating disorders. Parents do not cause addiction. There is a difference between cause and correlation, as I'm sure we all know. But many of the things that happen in the home can correlate with mental health issues later in life. And it will happen to some, and it won't happen, and it may not happen to others. That's why it's correlation. There's a lot of fat shaming in my household growing up. I used to come home from school and eat Chef Boyardee ravioli right out of the can. Do they still have that nowadays, Chef Boyardee? I'd use the old style can opener and go, and eat it with the spoon. My mom would come home from selling real estate. She would see me doing that, and she would say, Brian, if you keep eating like that, you're going to be a fat pig. Now, these were the things my mother said to her. These were the things my great-grandmother said to my grandmother. That wasn't my mother's fault. This was the 1970s. These were the tools she was given as a young mother dealing with her own mental health issues at a time where a woman with a mental health issue, you could be put in an asylum. So we just don't talk about it. And that's what they were called back then. When I came home with bad grades, as her mother said to her, she would call me a dumb bunny. She had a very verbally and mentally abusive with her mother, who also had her own mental health issues. That was not her fault. I don't blame her for that. But as a young boy, not understanding Psychology 101 yet, I grew depressed to hear these things. And I began to eat more Chef Boyardee ravioli and more Chef Boyardee ravioli. And I became a bigger Brian and a bigger Brian. And it so often happens when kids change for what other kids perceive in the negative in school. It happened then, it happens now. I've seen it in law school, I've seen it with lawyers, and it happens in a more insidious way in social networking now. The bullying started. Brian, you need to go to Sears and Roebuck and get a bra for your man boobs. Brian, you need to take an extra notch out on that belt. I developed a very self-deprecating sense of humor as a shield against how much these words hurt me. They were like daggers in my stomach. But I didn't want people to know that, because in my mind, the people who were saying these things to me were the popular kids. This was before Al Gore invented the internet, right? My popularity images were the people I saw every day: the prom king, the prom queen, the kids going to the football games, the kids going to the exclusive after-school parties. Those were my visions of popularity. And in my mind, they were all thin or muscular and good looking and attractive. I wanted to be part of that so badly. And so I took it and I became the self-deprecating, sad clown, just hanging around on the outside, hoping that one day this group of kids, this group of bullies, but in my mind, the popular bullies, would one day say, Brian, you've survived the initiation, you're one of us. But bullying doesn't work that way. It all culminated in what I call the day of the gold pants. My brother Mark gave me a pair of shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. Yes, this was the disco era back then, the mid-70s. Now, if you've seen Saturday Night Fever, if you haven't, go see it. Take a look at John Travolta. Imagine John Travolta in those shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. And now here's Brian in those same pants. Oop, don't imagine that. Ugh. Because I was a heavy kid. Those pants fit Mark fine. They were tight on me. I had to jump up and down. I had to spray the water bottle. My butt looked like 15 cats back there, but I didn't care because I love my brother. He loved me, and I was going to wear those pants to school every day. And I did, and I stood them up in the corner. And the kids made fun of me, and I self-deprecated. I laughed at myself, and it hurt so bad. I'm walking home with a group of these kids one day. It was a mile from the school to my house along a busy street. I'm wearing my shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. They start making fun of them. They start laughing. I go into my self-deprecation routine. But they decided to take it a little further. They decided that I was just too fat to wear those pants. And they attacked me. They physically assaulted me. And they ripped those pants off me. They ripped my shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants off me, ripped them into shreds and threw them out in the busy street. Went on like they had done the greatest and funniest thing ever. High-fiving each other, slapping the backs. I went out in the street in my Fruit of the Loom tighty-whities, my Pittsburgh Pirates t-shirt, my Ked shoes, and my tube socks. Yes, this was the 70s. I gathered up the shreds, I put them over my private parts, and I waddled home. People gawked. No one stopped. I got home, and I went down in the basement with those shreds and threw them away, hoping to forget about that moment, hoping to incinerate that moment. But trauma stays. Trauma remembers. The body remembers. I could today go to that spot in Pittsburgh, PA, and show you exactly where that happened. That is how trauma works. So as you might imagine, I was very happy to get out of Pittsburgh, PA. And people ask me, why didn't you tell your brothers? Why didn't you tell your parents? Well, I wasn't going to tell my brothers that I couldn't stand up to bullies. I wasn't going to tell my mom, who I was having difficulty with anyways. I wasn't going to tell my father, who was my sense of, my rock, my sense of love, my sense of safety. The guy who ensured me that after watching Chiller Theater in Pittsburgh at 1 a.m, the scary movie, the monsters weren't going to come in my room that night and take me away. It was better just to internalize it and tell no one. And I told no one.